Level 0 Extraction had its opening beta last week, and I played as much as I could to try to answer the one burning question. Is it any good? Well, let's talk about it. So I'm going to try my best to explain what Level 0 Extraction is, where I think it will try to fit in the current market, the design choices that I think show a lot of promise, some choices that I think could go either way, and some things, if not corrected, could hurt the game in the long run. So here's the basic setup. Level 0 Extraction game takes place in a sci-fi setting where you have the choice to play as either a mercenary that has a pretty standard extract gameplay loop, or as an alien whose primary goal is to hunt the human players until they're all dead or extracted. From what I've been able to find, this is not the first iteration of the game. Originally, it was a basic asymmetrical PvP setup that pitted the scientists versus aliens. This is important to note because you can still see a lot of the previous assets being used in ways that don't make a lot of sense, which we'll get into later. Bear in mind, this is still a beta and the Discord is brimming with new and work-in-progress items coming down the pipeline, but that doesn't leave us without any information on where the game is headed. The interesting thing for me is that I was at a point where I was about to uninstall the game, but then eventually got to a place where I was looking forward to playing it every day. All the while, the things that made me want to uninstall remained a factor. So I have a decent balance of things to touch on, and we'll try to deliver them even-handedly so you can decide if the game is something you want to give a shot. Starting on the positives. The mercenary gameplay looks to be moving in a direction of being a solid middle ground for the extraction shooter space. As I've discussed in previous videos, the extraction genre can judge its degree of difficulty and accessibility by how it handles loot value primarily, which we'll get into, but it can be judged in other ways. In this case, the combat finds itself in a sweet spot between tactical without feeling too unforgiving. The time to kill rewards you for landing shots and moving intelligently, but has enough forgiveness to not feel unapproachable. Given that as of right now, the only real choices you have are Tarkov and its various clones that heavily cater to the milsim crowd, and Hunt Showdown, which is a good, but extremely casual title. Level 0 Extraction looks to be setting itself up to be a choice that lands somewhere between the two. A good example of this middle ground is how they handle friendly indicators. Most of the time, you will not have friendly indicators, so you will still need to have good communication with your teammates regarding your movement. However, if they are close to you or you focus on them, their names will pop up, and if you damage them, you will be given a notification that you're doing friendly damage. I feel like this both rewards teams with good comms and builds just enough leeway to not be too punishing when it's not perfect. Another feature is that in the event that you die and you're not a solo, you will come back as a drone. You can still interact and affect the game. The drone can use a flashlight, interact with lights, doors, etc. and ping. It of course can take damage and be destroyed as well, so it's not completely free, but it will respawn after some time. Even as a drone, the game greatly incentivizes you to assist your living teammates in their escape because you will gain money if they extract with your drone. There are some features I'd like to highlight that could be taken as either a positive or negative depending on your viewpoint and how the devs decide to develop them going forward. But before we go over them, if you've made it this far, there's a good chance I'm entertaining you. You should consider subscribing. It lets me know to put more stuff out like this. Thanks for your consideration, and now back to the video. Missions and quests are called contracts, and are handled in a way that I haven't seen before, but have some mixed feelings about. As of now, there is no linear campaign to follow. Each trader has 2 active missions that can all be accomplished. They're all active at the same time, so in theory you could accomplish them all in a single raid, though unlikely. During the beta, they were on 2-hour timers that refreshed. All players have the same contracts and mission items that can be stolen off of bodies. So the upside of this kind of system is that you don't have to worry if someone you've grouped up with has a different level of progression than you. You all have the same missions, but the issue is right now, all missions are fetch quests and only one item for that contract spawns and you don't all get the credit. So if you're in a group, you're likely to be running the same areas for the same contracts multiple times. It's not that big of an issue, but I feel this could probably be done a little bit better. The environment does a good job of drawing you in and being immersive. You really get the feeling of a facility that's been lived in and abandoned. From the flickering lights, the random noises, to the random blackouts, it always leaves you wondering if that shadow did move or if that really was a footstep you heard. Fights will come down to shooting and movement, but the additional element of properly using lighting to mask your position while illuminating the enemies sets this game apart in a fun way. There are environmental hazards like live wires and random mines, which serve mostly as sound traps, but I hope in the future they lean more into possible variations on environmental hazards, while also making their positioning variable to add some spice to each run. The inventory system seems like it's still in a rudimentary state. It's a basic stack and weight balance system, which is perfectly fine, though there are a lot of items that could stack a bit more. Currently, the backpack is striking a good balance of being able to carry enough to make it out with a good amount of gear or loot without giving you free reign to just pick up everything you want off the map. Multiple times we were left with one surviving member among a pile of bodies, and you very quickly realize you need to really prioritize what to bring and leave behind if you want any degree of mobility or sustainability should you have another fight. Traders are highly specialized. One is for crafting or bartering, another is for guns, parts and ammo, another for meds, and so forth and so forth. For the sake of adding some leveling strategy or variety, I think it would be best to maybe generalize them a little bit more. While there's good reason to level up other traders, getting to the point where you can just buy desired weapons and ammo from the gunsmith makes the rest of the leveling significantly easier. Something like the cycle where each faction had specific guns to unlock may play well here, but it's a good start. Some quick issues pertaining to the economy gives me mixed feelings. At first, you can loot items to be used in crafting gear. This excited the loot goblin in me because that meant most items potentially had a purpose and value. But leveling the corresponding trader eventually just lets you buy the gear. It won't take long in these kinds of games where money has little value to then, by extension, make looting pointless. You do have a cooldown when you're buying too much of the same item, but as of right now, that really just prevents you from supplying yourself as well as your buddies every single round. In the end though, I think these are minor issues that could be improved upon with small tweaks. Next, we're going to dive into what I believe are some objectively bad parts of the game. But before we get into that, I am happy to inform you about the game's current state, but I want to encourage you to try it out for yourself, especially if you can do so for free if given the opportunity. I cannot possibly know what you find personally fun. So, with that out the way, the starting experience for the game is abysmal. It's bad for a multitude of reasons, but I'll just hammer the big ones. Let's compare the beta trailer for the open beta. You can see a large variety of guns, some tactical movement, some exciting gunfights. So you're hyped up to play the game. Download it and see this.
What is that? What the f*** is that?
Remember when I mentioned the game started out as a basic asymmetrical PvP setup that pitted scientists against aliens? Yeah, so this is seen heavily in the starting weapons of nail gun, harpoon launcher, and dart guns. The harpoon gun and dart guns are straight up noob traps, but the nail guns are going to be your primary weapon until you learn to play the game and then some. The pistol, even though stat-wise is basically the same, feels significantly better to use. It may seem small, but players are signing up to be a mercenary with guns to have gunfights, not be Captain Construction with paintball feeling engagements. That starts to feel really uninspiring and unexciting. And at the critical new player acquisition point, that kind of deflation is not needed. Now, if you've played Level 0 Extraction, you've probably noticed I'm going out of my way not to mention the alien portion of the game. But adding to the issues new players experience, aliens represent an unknown X factor. The game already tosses a lot at you without so much in the way of tutorials, which, to be fair, is pretty normal for an extraction shooter in early development. So, to a new player that is likely playing solo, aliens will seem overpowered. New players lack the knowledge they need to defend themselves properly, even against a moderately good single alien, much less a duo. This compounds into a really frustrating new player experience. If unresolved, you're going to see a lot of refunds by frustrated players that otherwise would stay. But in the long term, aliens have other issues as well. From a mercenary perspective, aliens are not engaging to fight. This is not because aliens are undertuned. To a competent, well-supplied duo or trio, aliens present no real threat. But that's not why they're not engaging to fight. There's no gain for killing them, they're impossible to disengage with, they respawn, and they can't even loot you if you die. That's one of the key attractions of the extraction shooter genre. You're incentivized to fight players to take their stuff or avoid them to save your own. And when they're dead, they're dead. Good alien players know the map, so killing them means you've bought yourself a minute at most before they're on top of you again. Mercenaries are playing high risk with possible rewards while managing economy over the long term, and aliens are playing an arcade PvP game. The way the alien players are currently implemented completely disregards the extraction shooter formula. Now, to be fair, alien progression is on the roadmap and we don't know exactly what that looks like. But let's say that introduces a whole alien economy that allows for cross-looting. Asymmetrical teams are always going to be a challenge to balance. It might be simpler if this was a standard PvP game with even teams and such, but with an extraction shooter game that has a long-term economy and many other factors to balance before you even include aliens, it becomes very difficult. Aliens are unquestionably undertuned, but I am 100% okay with that. Personally, I'd rather have the side with nothing to lose be more likely to be underperforming, at least until there's a much better new player onboarding process. I have seen multiple players who actively play extraction shooters run into these issues and just straight up uninstall and write the game off. If the game cannot hold on to players already accustomed to the harshness that an extract shooter can be, there is very little hope for retaining anyone else. However, by the end of the beta, I was having a bunch of fun and thoroughly enjoyed the experience even with all these issues. But I'm stubborn, and honestly, it was a fantastic opportunity to play with my son. It's in beta, so I know not to expect everything to be lined up. The same cannot be said about the average player. If the main issues the game currently has are not corrected, it will seriously prohibit the game's ability to onboard and retain players. This game represents a strong possible choice in the extraction shooter space, and it would be a shame for it to falter like so many others. I look forward to seeing how they decide to manage it going forward. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and comment down below. Subscribe for future content. Thank you so much for watching, and good hunting.